you guys want to pass your test for your driving permit or license, keep watching, okay? Just watch the whole video and you have 99.9% of passing after watching this. Hi everyone, I'm back on the beanbag, and today we're gonna have a talk about how to pass your permit test or your driving test. Cause listen to me, not to brag or anything, but I did pass the first time on both tests, so I think I'm pretty skilled in the knowledge. Let's get to the video. So, how to pass your permit test. The permit test is the first thing that you take prior to taking your driving test. So you have to have your permit in different states. I know it's different, but in Nevada you have to have your permit for 6 months and then you can take your driving test. And then you have to be 15 and a half to get your permit. 15 and a half. You can't be 15 and 1/4 or something like that. So you have to be 15 and a half to get your permit. So before you take your permit, I recommend that you read the book. There's an online PDF. I'll link that down below. So first you read the book. You read through the book. You skim through the book or whatever. Then you take practice tests. Practice, practice, practice. These practice tests is what made me pass. Like, I used to take so many practices. I would take like 5 days, stuff like that. And so basically you're gonna read the book, take practice tests, and then try to remember everything. And then, so I'm gonna tell you guys something that I almost failed from. So I'm giving you guys a tip because I wish someone gave me this tip. When you're reading the permit test book or whatever, like the permit test book, make sure you read cover to cover the whole book. I made the mistake of skipping things. So I'm like, oh, I don't need that. Like the child car seat area, I'm like, I don't have a child, I'm not gonna need that. I skipped that part. And then the trailer, I'm like, when am I ever gonna drive a trailer? So skipped her too. And then I also skipped the motorcycle part. I'm like, when the heck am I ever gonna drive a motorcycle? Like, that's a no for me. And guess what was on my permit test? Car seats, motorcycles, and trailers. So I think there's about 14 different versions. Honestly, it's based off of luck. I heard that someone literally got a test about signs, I tell you. So, such as in my case, my test had a bunch of questions about motorcycles, car seats, baby car seats, trailers, and oh, there's also this thing called a Dmv Point System. Make sure you remember that because I hear that's on everybody's test. That was also my test. I did good on that part. And then, because when I took the test, there were 50 questions, not this little 25 thing. So I had to do 50 questions. And funny story about my test is, I was doing all my questions. I was on my 49th question, and I had, so you can only get 10 wrong when there was the 50 questions. So I got 10 wrong, and if I got one more wrong, I would have failed. So I was on my 50th question. Guess what the question was about, guys? Trailers. I kind of remember the question. It was like, where do you put the kingpin trailer, yada yada. I was on my 50th question. Remind you, I had already got 10 questions wrong, so I could not get anywhere wrong or I would have failed. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my god, what is this? So I had no clue what this kingpin trailer thing was. So I was like, you know what? Boop, I guess, and I end up getting it right. So moral of that story is, make sure you don't skip any parts in the book, and when you're taking the test, do not second guess yourself, because on another part of the test, I was like reading through the questions and I was like, oh, it's that one. Wait, no, it's that one. And then getting it wrong. So make sure you don't second guess yourself and go with your first answer, because sometimes if you don't go your first answer, you can get it wrong. So now, when I took it was 50, but now it's 25, so you can only get 5 wrong. You can only get 5 wrong on a 25 point scale or whatever. So that's how you get your little permit. And then once you get your permit, you have to wait 6 months to get your driver's license. So on your permit, study, because if you don't study, you end up having to pay to take the test over again, and no one wants to pay that dumb little fee. So when you actually take the permit test, it costs $25 to take the permit test, and then I think it was like $25 to get like your actual permit. So I came into there with a $50 bill and walked out with 25 cents. So overall, it's gonna be like $50 just to get your permit. And then when you so even take the permit in the first place, you have to bring a certificate of attendance. So basically saying like something from your school. It's just like a paper from your school they give to your attendance office, and they fill it out basically saying you come to school. Then you have to bring a proof of identity, so your birth certificate and your student ID or like an identification card. Make sure you bring your birth certificate, because some people got turned down because they did not bring theirs. Oh my god. So you're bringing your proof of identity, such as your birth certificate. You bring a certificate of attendance. Then you're gonna want to bring your parent, because they need to sign some stuff too. Then you're gonna want to bring your what's that called? Oh, proof of address. So that could be energy bill, water bill, something like that. And then you're gonna want to make sure that you're ready to go. Don't go take the test when you're not really sure, like you don't feel confident. Make sure you go in there with confidence and you're like, okay, I'm gonna pass this test. Because if you go in there you're like, oh my god, I'm scared, I'm not gonna pass the test, then you won't. You're gonna have to go in there full force. I'm gonna pass. I can do this. I don't want to pay that $11 fee to retake it. I'm gonna pass this test. So that's how you get your permit, everyone. Now we're gonna get into how to get your driver's license. Alright everyone, I'm going to tell you how to get your driver's license so you can whip by yourself. So after you get your permit, what I previously instructed you to do. So once you get your permit, you have to wait 6 months. That 6 months you're going to want to be doing driver's ed, and you're going to want to be practicing. So overall you need 50 hours, and then 10 of them have to be in the dark. And then there's this app called Road Ready, and it helps you log your hours. I had that app, and so you push start, and then let's say you drive to Walmart or whatever. So as you're driving to Walmart, it picks up how many minutes you drove for, how many miles you drove for, and if it was day or night. So let's say if you went at 9 o'clock at night, it would log it into your night hours. And then if you went at 2 in the day, it would log it in the daytime hours. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you get all 50 hours of night/day. And then in that entire 6 months, you're going to want to be practicing, because when you actually go to take the test, you have to remember that these instructors literally have been driving with these people for years, so they know if you're a bad driver, or they know if you're, scared or something like that. So during the 6 months, and then you're also going to do driver's ed. Driver's ed is basically the stuff on the permit test. I don't know how you do it after, but it's basically telling you stuff of the road, laws, regulations. Mine had something about the engine. But if you guys asked me how long it took me to do driver's ed, it literally took me 3 days, but so you can do driver's ed on your phone or your computer or your iPad. Some programs have apps and some make you use websites. So you're just going through your driver's ed and yada hee hoo. And then at the end of the driver's ed, there's gonna be this big test. It's probably gonna be like 100 questions, and you do that big long test. And then after you finish your test, you either depending on which program, you can either print out your certificate, or you can or the certificate either gets mailed to you. So whichever program you do end up doing, make sure that if it's getting mailed to you, that it has enough time to get mailed to you. Now let's get into the testing part. So when you walk into the DMV, oh yeah, I'm the best driver the world has ever seen. Walk in with confidence to pass that test. So make sure you also have this with you. So remember I was talking about the 50 hours. You're gonna want to print all that out. So print all out the 50 hours, and then you have to, even if mine was like 7 pages, or some people are like 10 pages. So you have to print all of that out. You're gonna want that in your hand. You're also gonna want your birth certificate, your instruction permit, and you're also gonna need your proof of address again, so like an energy bill or something like that, and then a parent so they can sign some stuff. So you're gonna want to have all that stuff in your hand, and then also make sure that the car is registered, because if it's not registered then you won't be able to take the test. And make sure that you're either on the insurance or your insurance plan has this family thing or whatever, because one time when I went in there, the insurance thing, I wasn't like on there or whatever, because we didn't know that, and I had to wait a month and a half to take the test. So make sure you bring your little insurance. Make sure you bring your little insurance, everyone. So once you have your insurance, your registration, the driving hours, the certificate, proof of address, proof of you, all that jazz, you're gonna want to make sure you're on time for your appointment. I'm talking so much. I find this fun. So let's say my appointment was at 1:30, but we got there at 1 o'clock, and the appointment that was supposed to be at 1:15 ended up not showing. So I actually got pulled earlier to go take the test. Call you and they're like, okay, we're gonna go take the test now. So you walk out to your car. Oh, when you park, like when you get there, make sure you pull in. So you get to your car with your driving instructor. You get in the car first, and then you turn on the car. They stand and, oh my god, it's this movie. They stand in front of the car, you're inside the car, and they're gonna be like, okay, right blinker, left blinker, and then they go to the back of the car and they check the right blinker, left blinker, and the brakes. So they just want to make sure that everything's working. Then they get into the car and you actually have to back out of the parking space. That's why they want you to pull in, so they can make sure you can back out. So you're backing out. This is my little road. So I back out, and then I'm driving out of the parking lot. I turn right, driving down the street. It depends on your instructor. My instructor was really nice, and he told me the speed limit, because sometimes you can't see the speed limit signs. So he told me the speed limits. I'm driving down the street, and he's like, okay, get over. When you're getting over, this is so important. You're gonna want to look at the rearview mirror, look at the side mirror, turn your whole body. So you're gonna look. Make sure you don't just use your eyes, because they're sitting next to you, so they can't really see you moving your eyes. So you're gonna look, because if you don't look, they're gonna like mark you off points, and you can only get, I think it's 80 points you have to get or something. So I'm looking over, I get over, make sure your blinker's on and everything, and then I get over again to turn to a community. The community areas are like usually 25 miles per hour. And then you want to make sure that you don't run any stoplights, because sometimes trees are covering the stoplights. So make sure you're paying extra attention to your surroundings. Is a kid running out on the street? Is there another car coming? Just use your eyes, okay? So I'm driving down, and I go into a community, turn left into a community, and then driving around the community or whatever. And I come out back onto another main street, and I'm driving, turn my right to my left, and then in some cities, like in mine, you can turn right on a red light. Some of them you cannot, so make sure you know your rules and regulations and all that stuff for your city. And then I went back down another main street, and I had to turn left. This is the one mistake that I made. We'll get to that. So the mistake that I made was, when you're in the 2 turning lanes, the car in the inside lane should always turn to the closest lane, and then the car on the outside line should always turn to their closest one. But I accidentally went to the other one, like that way, not to the other car, and I got points marked off for that. So make sure you're going to the right lane. And then I had to get over again, and then there's different routes for the test. Like one of my friends, she had to go around a roundabout. I didn't have to do that. So make sure you know how to drive in different areas. And then actually, if you know where you're taking your test, you can actually go over there and drive around the area and practice with your parents to help you. Oh, and also before this, when you have your permit, make sure there's an adult over 21 or 25 in your car. Or because if you get pulled over, you can get like your permit revoked and then your parent can get in trouble. So make sure there's an adult in the car. Anyway, back to when I was taking the test, I went to this area, like this little driving... I went to this little driving, whatchamacallit, and then I'd make a U-turn. So some tests, what I was saying earlier, to do a roundabout, a U-turn, or a 3-point turn. I'm so glad I didn't do a 3-point turn because I looked it up and I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I did a little U-turn. U-turns are pretty easy. You just whip it. And so I made a U-turn and then I go back into the DMV parking lot. And this is where I struggled a bit. So when I take the test, you have to do parallel parking. I practiced the day before. I had no clue to parallel park. I'm like going back and forth. So recently Nevada took out the parallel parking part. So if you live in another state, make sure you know how to parallel park, and also make sure that you turn on your blinker. I didn't know you were supposed to do that. So basically the only points that I got marked off for was the turning in the wrong lane when I was turning left, and then the parallel parking. Also, another tip is do not go over the speed limit. Even if, let's say the speed limit is 45. Do not go over the speed limit even by 1. So if it's 46, do not. Make sure it's better to drive under the speed limit, but not too much under the speed limit. Like at one point I wasn't paying attention. I was actually going like 38. I got points marked off for that. Make sure you're driving. So if the speed limit's 45, me personally, I would drive. In some parts I did. You should honestly drive from 42 to 44, because sometimes when you're on 45, if you push on the gas pedal too much, it might jump to 46. So make sure you're driving in that speed limit range. And at the end of the test, he told me, like, I can tell you're a good driver, you know what you're doing. So what I told you earlier, these people know if you're scared or if you can't drive. So make sure you know how to drive and you're not to stay in the car. Make sure the radio's off. You get points marked off for that. Like before I went into the DMV, I turned the radio off. So like when I got into the car, it wasn't even on. So that was off. And then make sure your phone is either powered off or the ringer's completely off and it's like tucked away, or you or them can't even see it. Because if you look a little peep at your phone, and make sure you're careful about curbs. I heard that some people got, they either failed the test or got points marked off for hitting the curb. And then also, if you're familiar with your city, make sure you schedule your tests at a time where you know the streets won't be crowded. Like, I scheduled my test, what I said, like 1 something. And luckily, the DMV that the street's on is very, very crowded. But at the time, it wasn't so crowded. So those are all the tips and tricks to passing your permit and your driving test from a true professional. Shout out to my mom for teaching me how to drive, because I was god awful at first. Maybe I'll insert a clip, but I was really bad.
Where is this?
Okay, we're driving on the...
What's this guy doing? Isn't it up there?
Yeah, go ahead. Tony's driving, you guys. Am I scared? Yeah, just a little bit.
So start off in your little parking lot, go to a less crowded street, then eventually you get into more crowded streets. And then some parents don't let their kids drive on the freeway, but I feel like that's an important skill to learn because it teaches you to be very aware of your surroundings. Because in a freeway, you can just stop at any time, you know? So make sure you're driving safely, comfortably, comfortably. Okay, here's a quick little overview. Permit. Make sure you have your certificate of attendance, your proof of address, your proof of use, so like a birth certificate, your parent or your guardian or whatever, and then your knowledge. and then some money so you can pay for everything. That's your permit, and then once you get your permit, 6 months later, you can take your driving test. During the 6 months, make sure you take driver's ed, you take your practicing for 50 hours, and then once you finally take your driving test, that very so exciting day. Make sure you're confident, you're ready, you know how to drive, or you're good after. Like, when I get over, so make sure you're remembering what to do. And comment down below if you pass your tests. I hope you do. And tell me if it was easy or hard, or if you got a nice instructor or a mean instructor, a talkative instructor, or an instructor that's like, yeah. So just, you know, tell me how your test went. I'm very intrigued. But that was how my test went, and that's how the genius passed her test. This is bippity boppity bam. Alright everyone, that was my tips and tricks and my experience on my permit test / your driving test, and I really hope that you guys pass. You can do this, believe in yourself. Me personally, I watched a bajillion YouTube videos of like people passing their tests or people, you know, driving for the first time. I think that settled my nerves a little bit. Then when you're driving, you got this, you know. So like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell. Toot toot. And thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to watch my other videos. What's that other one? There's like another one. It's like this one? Or this one? No. Thank you guys.